And welcome back, everybody, to the Between Two Wheels podcast. Today's show, cancellations galore for the 2021 seasons. They are piling up, such as the Bora team. They piled up on the road, kind of reminiscent of the Giant-Alpecin crash in 2016. Ketones, they're going to be decided by the UCI and some jail time for blood doping. Sprinters complain. This time it's Sagan's turn. We'll talk about that one. And should I, Tyler, apologize for my rant, my non-empathetic rant against Velo Promo last week? Well, we'll take a look at all of that. Welcome. It's 219 episodes. It is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 18, 2021. This is Tyler Janke, Between Two Wheels podcast. I think I've covered all that. Right now, just go to wherever you're at, you're listening, watching this, just hit subscribe to us. We lost a few subscribers on YouTube, but let's keep pushing those things up. So subscribe to us there. Just hit it, make a comment. We'll get back to you. And I'm going to read some viewer mailbag here today. So we will kind of encapsulate all that. Let's start with the Velo Promo thing. Look, take a look back. Before I get there, I want to thank Jason Saltzman for coming onto the show, episode 218. We had a nice interview with him. Great kid. It was really good to kind of get an understanding of where he's been. And, you know, you see some of these juniors and young kids out riding, you know, just really laying it down. And you think maybe it's been easy for them all along. And Jason kind of says otherwise. So good for him. I think, you know, look, our thing is let's talk to Jason. A little self-serving. If he makes it really big, we've got this connection to him. If he bombs, which we hope he doesn't, then it's just right in line with everything else we do on this podcast. So either way, we're covered. Jason, we wish you the best. I'm pretty sure he's going to be successful, and everyone can follow him with the Wildlife Generation Pro Cycling Team. So check out 218 episode 218 we just posted it in this weekend for our interview with Jason. But we're going to talk about some other things today. Velo Promo and Tyler. Well, we got some feedback. My issue with Velo Promo, I'll just recap it. You can look at that on episode 217. Went a little off on that. Very narrow focused of, didn't really appreciate the way that they were calling everybody out. You know, we've been in lockdown for a year. I don't need to restate all these things. And you look at comparisons of different states that have not done the same thing we have, and the cases are not quite the same. So who knows what the reasoning is for that? Everyone seems to think it's non-compliance. I think there's data out there to show otherwise. But are you showing me data that supports your side? So we're all cheering on the tour and other races in other countries, but we're ecstatic about them not happening in our own backyard. And this is a health issue, right? Get out, ride your bike. Let's make it something that we can all do. So we'll get to some mailbag here. As far as my empathy, it shouldn't matter my reasoning for wanting to do bike racing. It really shouldn't matter if I come from a position of, and by the way, I got some, messages, the ones that posted on Facebook and YouTube directly, I will read those. The ones that sent me stuff privately, I will not, because I didn't get your consent for it. Maybe you intended me to do so, but I just don't want to breach that. So typically though, if you send me something about the show privately, I probably will talk about it. I may, but I do try to hold that off. But you know, I've had work-related issues. I deal with family law, do a lot of property stuff now, and I'm seeing a tremendous amount of, domestic violence restraining order issues going on. People losing their job, not being able to pay spousal support, child support, people not being able to receive spousal support, child support, because people have lost their jobs. They've lost their houses. I can go over and over these situations. These are real world situations that basically for the middle class, underclass, lower class has really hit them hard. And that is where my empathy falls. And so, maybe I react to that. You guys are out there still working for the state or what have you, get your nice paycheck. Oh, I got a little bit of a deduction. You say, okay, fine. But there's real world situations of people out there. And perhaps that's where my empathy comes from. Shouldn't really matter what my reasoning is. If you feel sorry for me or I feel sorry or not, maybe I just have reasonings. If it's not a good reason, then it really doesn't matter if it comes from a place of empathy. But that's my thing. I think health being outside, being able to ride your bike outside and all that. And I'm not going to really go down to that. You've heard that you're here for cycling, and that's really one I want to push. Okay. I'm not anti-Velo Promo either way. Those shirts I get, because I've got a bunch of them, I tend to hand off to my kids. They're a little stiff. That's all I'm saying. But it's what it is. We appreciate the racing. Nevertheless, I support the organizations that are promoting cycling, and I maybe choose not to support the ones that are not supporting cycling. That's all I'm going at. All right, let's go to some cancellations. Tour Down Under, as we know, was canceled. New Zealand, I think, is canceled. Colorado Classic for 2021 has also been canceled. And with the bummer about that one is, that race, obviously it started, a while ago with the men, and we were able to have them in there. And now it is a situation where we are not even having it started. It was women only in 2019. Last year they didn't have it. And then we have 221 is also being canceled. Colorado Classic, presented by VF Corporation, America's premier women's only racing event, today announces plans to return to racing in 2022 and not hold the event in 2021, following an overwhelming success in its debut as women's standalone event in 2019. Blah, blah, blah. With that in mind, we have decided not to showcase the women in 2020 and or 2021. Okay. So, look, that race had men going on there. They had some women, and then they just women only. Chloe Dygert destroyed everybody. And when I say destroyed, I mean destroyed. I think she won every stage, every jersey in the 2019 event. I was a little disappointed in the competition that allowed that to happen, but we obviously know that she is a beast. And so it's not unwarranted that it took place where she was riding away from everybody. But it wasn't the highest women's caliber racing either, but it was showcasing women in the US, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a little disappointing to see at one time she's off the front, even on a flat stage, barreling in a few K to go, and the whole pack is kind of spread across the road. No one really gets up the fight to chase it. So she was stronger than the entire women's field. Congrats to her. And sadly, this is not, they go on here, this is not an easy decision to make. We know that the race holds an important place on both the domestic and international race calendar, and we remain committed to our goal of being the best women's race in the world, just not the last 2 years. Okay. And people are going to complain at me for making that, but I think it's good to push women's racing, see what you can do. But, as Jason and I pointed this out from day one too, maybe it's permitting. You're not able to get permits. So maybe the state of Colorado doesn't like women. Maybe that's what we'll come out to. Tour San Juan has also been canceled. The Vuelta a San Juan canceled due to coronavirus pandemic. Remember, Remco Evenepoel won that last year, and he was not really up to racing yet anyway, so he's probably okay with this, keeping the racing not happening. The 2021 Vuelta a San Juan has been canceled due to the rising number of coronavirus cases in Argentina. The event has been due to take place from January 24 to 31. The Vuelta a España, the Vuelta a San Juan, first took place in 1982 and has been held every year since. Following the demise of the Tour de San Luis, the Vuelta a San Juan stepped up to become a UCI 2.1 race in 2017. I think that's Balcomolimer won that year, attracting several World Tour teams in the process. The event formed part of the new UCI Pro Series last year. Okay. Chris Froome was looking to take his debut, and you're getting some of these early season canceled races, and you're looking to see some of these riders like, Chris Froome is his new team. He had a tough 2020, did seem to kind of pull it around there at the Vuelta. What I mean by pulling around is he was doing a ton of work. Evidently he was raising his hand a lot to do work for Carapaz. So we saw him a little later on some of the climbs than he had been for the Tour, which he was just lagging behind. So we'll see if he's actually coming about, and maybe this whole change of team, training in California early on, maybe that would help him, but we're not going to see him there. Tour Rwanda, they've also canceled out. The Tour Rwanda postponed. Now, this is maybe the better deal. I like at least what they're trying to do here. They're postponing it rather than saying it's canceled altogether. The 2021 Tour Rwanda has been postponed until May due to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. The race was due to take place from February 21 to 28, but has now been rescheduled for May 2 through 9, subject to confirmation by the UCI. So the good thing you have with that one, obviously, is that they're going to try to at least get the race off on the ground as well, instead of just saying, oh, we're not even having a chance of this taking place. we're at least going to see if at some point they would still step it up and show it. So who was actually, let's take a look at the news report by Cycling News. Event slated. Okay, we got that. Who is actually Israel Startup Nation with a lone World Tour team slated to take part in the race, while other teams Total Direct Energy, B&B Hotels, presented by KTM, Team Nova Nordisk, and Andriani Giocattoli Sidermac had also confirmed their participation. So this race is really kind of stepping up. Look, I imagine Israel Startup Nation and some of these other ones are going out there due to the fact that they actually are able to do an early season race, and this is one that's was going to happen. So whether they even get these teams to confirm back if the UCI approves them back in May, that's subject to see. And I don't know that you're necessarily going to see that happen. Actually, I would doubt that you're going to see the same teams looking to show up at this point. All right. Probably all heard about this. Bora Hansgrohe was hit by the team without training. Some of them were doing a ride off with the others. Some of them were riding together, but some split off and they decided to, well, I don't know what happened, but a car pulled out, hit them. So they, first look, it's like, okay, most everyone's okay, but then some riders went to the hospital, and then it's like, well, maybe we've got a little issue. And then it's like, well, actually two of them are possibly in fairly bad shape. So what I think we'll do, once again, we'll take a look at this news story and go through it and then kind of compare it with the one. I don't know if you remember this, but back in 2016, it was almost exactly the same time, January 20, I think that one was, Giant-Alpecin got hit. You had, I think, Michael Matthews, Chad Haga. I'm trying to remember the guy. He rode a Trek later on. And I think he did really well in the Tour de France Paris-Roubaix stage. And he hurt his finger. And I can't remember his name for some reason. Someone else join in here and let me know. But he was up there and he was hit pretty bad as well. And there's some complications. Bora Hansgrohe riders hit by a vehicle at training camp, taken to hospital. 7 riders hit by a car while training in Italy. Several Bora Hansgrohe riders have been taken to the hospital in northern Italy after a car hit a group of riders whilst they were out training on Saturday. You use the word whilst, and then you understand it is coming from a European website. Okay, according to the groups, the reports, a group of 7 riders were out training when they were hit by a car, with at least 3 needing to be taken to the hospital. However, one of the riders in the team confirmed the incident with Ide Schelling, taking to Strava to confirm the news. But a shit end of the camp, big crash with a car in my group. All guys crashed, the rider noted. I have a little safe angel on my shoulder, as I was the only ones who decided not to go the extra hour. Hope everyone is okay. Don't know much more, though. Keep an eye out in the Bora Hansgrohe socials. Bummer for that. So then you started to see, okay, there were some guys that were taken to the hospital. And next thing you know, it's like, well, a little updated here was Schellinger fractures vertebrae after being hit by car at Bora Hansgrohe camp. German rider and 6 teammates hit by a car while training. Had been diagnosed with fractures of the transverse process and cervical and thoracic spine after he and 6 other teammates were hit by a car and training on Saturday. The incident occurred in the final Bora Hansgrohe training camp. We talked about that. Few details: the collision, but at least 3 riders, and so those 3 had gone to the hospital. And then I think there's the final update I really have on this one is 7 riders involved in car reportedly pulls out in front of them on the final day of training. Andreas Schellinger has been diagnosed with fractures. That just mentioned that. Confirmed, the team confirmed that Wilco Kelderman, Rudiger Selig, and Andreas Schellinger were taken to the hospital, all conscious. Wilco sustained a concussion and a fractured vertebrae. Andreas sustained broken vertebrae and cervical and thoracic spine. And we'd mentioned that. For both riders, we're aiming to conservative treatment. Rudy has also sustained a concussion, but no fractures. So not a good showing, So Kelderman, first I was like, oh, he used to be a Sunweb. Maybe he was maybe he's the problem getting hit. And by the way, it was interesting there that it kept talking about car wreck. And then later on, it just mentioned that an SUV hit him. Look, someone's driving a vehicle. That's all we really need to know. You don't need to blame the SUV. It wasn't an autonomous car. Anyway, Kelderman had been with Sunweb, but I don't think he joined them until 2017 or so. He'd been with Lotto, so I don't think that's the key. But anyway, not good for that team to be going down like that. we're seeing, it's also an interesting thing right now. We're seeing a bunch of riders indicate which races they're going to be going for. Egan Bernal's talking about the Giro. I don't know what Kelderman was going for on this one, but we'll do a little breakdown in a little bit next few weeks about which riders are determining to go where. Okay. I thought we'd pull this one up because this is an interesting situation that's been in development here, which is the use of ketones and how that is coming into the world tour. And UCI will soon decide position on ketone use in Peloton. The MPCC are preparing a request to WADA to investigate the miracle drink. Okay, so I just want to come take a step back from this. So the MPCC is this group of, I think some riders, some teams have been pulled out of there, but they have somewhat higher or different restrictions on testing and protocol that you have to be a part of this. And they're trying to push for a clean cycling. But not all the teams are in there. So one of the things they're talking about here is ketones. And, one of the big teams that uses that is Jumbo-Visma. They've obviously been very successful. So some of the teams that aren't are like Sunweb, as an example. They've been really critical about that. And Tom Dumoulin went from, Sunweb over to, or now DSM, over to Jumbo-Visma, and they use it. So there's been some controversy and issues here. So the MPCC is really pushing for the UCI to make this an illegal substance, prohibited substance. The Movement for Credible Cycling is submitting a request to the World Anti-Doping Agency to investigate ketones, with the 9 professional teams associated with the union created to defend clean cycling opposed to their use. And MCC Chairman Roger Leger saying arguments in favor of ketones are thin on the ground. This might be a translation issue here. According to De Limburger, the UCI will soon respond to these developments with an official position on the so-called, quote, miracle drink, unquote. There have been tensions over the use of ketones during the Tour de France, where several teams were reported to be using them, including Jumbo-Visma, with team boss Richard Plug saying the drink improved performance by 15%. So this is, look, that to me is a red flag when you're taking a product and it's increasing it by 15%. Adding its absence from the prohibited list meant there wasn't an issue. Okay, granted, there's nothing wrong with it as of now. The problem with ketones is that we know too little, Leger argues. We don't know who uses it, how many riders are taking it, whether it improves performance, and what the long-term effects are. We do know that some riders get stomach problems. Then why would they use them? Are they necessary for health? I don't think so. Well, I mean, come on. You ever had maybe you got drinking, right? And you get hungover. Why would you continue to do that? Because sometimes you do. I don't know I don't know. The bad stomach is a good example. But I'm going to keep reading this through here because there's some good give and take, and then we'll break that down. A nutritionist scientist who works with Jumbo-Visma, Asker Jukendrup, argues that if ketones were to be banned, they should also ban carbohydrates and all nutritional supplements. Quote, advice to them to use them is nonsensical and based on nothing except emotion, he said. Then you should also ban carbohydrates and glycerol because they fall under the same category as ketones. And then you could also argue that for a ban on all nutritional substances, including vitamins, as they might say. The argument about upset stomachs makes no sense either. Too much of anything can cause complaints. If you take too many gels, you also get stomach problems. Now, yes, I would agree completely with that one. Now, look, Leger, I think part of the problem you have here is, okay, you have this MPCC. Why don't you commission a study to do this instead of just throwing it at the UCI? You're going to trust the UCI, and maybe that's their whole point. And maybe the teams that are using the ketones need to conduct a study and kind of break this down as well. So you can have some give and take on one side. I would not want, and I think it's kind of crappy that Leger and the MPCC is just throwing this at the UCI to do it. I mean, I don't trust the UCI very much at all. I mean, they've been complicit with doping, in the past, and they're kind of a feckless organization in a sense. So, but yet one with a lot of power, if that makes sense. So I would not just throw it at them to make these decisions. I would try to do some research myself and see what the actual issue is. And instead of just throwing, look, maybe there's oh my God, these guys are riding aerodynamic bikes and they're too fast and they're too light. That's dangerous. A light bike will just break. And so you just throw it and say that. Well, maybe not. Maybe those bikes, maybe there's something useful about that, and you should get on a light and aero bike yourself. And so maybe that's the case. Maybe it's just a better way. And I don't know enough about ketones, Lance Armstrong pushes him, and he's a quality person with no background issues, and he just says it's just like that. Just it's like carbs. It's just like supplements. But at what point is an additional additive or whatever you're using that becomes performance enhancing? And that, to me, is maybe the gray area, and it's maybe something that we're not ever really going to be able to get to. I even think that some people have the no needles policy. I think like Taylor Finney was even doing a situation where he was like, I'm not even taking aspirin, or I'm not having any supplements, anything, because I just want to avoid any kind of semblance that there might be an issue with that at all. So we'll see what happens with all that last bit. It is all still argued that ketones are some kind of magical agent, the doctor goes on to say here, but nothing indicates that. In theory, we see that it improves performance, which is why we work with it. Yes, that's kind of the problem, right? 15%, that's huge. But in practice, I have not seen any evidence for this. Okay, so he's saying now, Richard Plug is saying 15%. The doctor says, yeah, it seems fine, but I haven't actually seen evidence in this. It is difficult to say how long that will take, but if there is a ban, we will look for other ways to improve athletes' blood doping, because that's what the sport is all about. Excuse me, I had something in my throat. Okay, well, there you have it with that. And ketones, I don't know a ton about it, so it would be interesting, if you guys have questions or concerns or something that you've taken into account with blood doping that it might be of interest, that we can at least have a better conversation about. I don't know enough, so therefore I'll have to do some of my own investigation. But it sounds like to me, I know just as much as Leger does. Yeah, probably saw that little thing. So let's take a look at this one. Stefan Denifil jailed over Operation Adderless blood doping. The Aqua Blue sport rider has been sentenced for defrauding teams by blood doping. Okay, so my first initial reaction of seeing that headline was, you're putting someone in jail for, some of these countries. It's ridiculous. They've criminalized these kind of situations where blood doping or performance enhancing is actually a criminal event. And I'm not a fan of that. Not at all. Stop putting people in jail for non-violent offenses is my whole thing in general, because you're not really helping them help themselves or the situation. There's issues going to civil court, restitution, you can pay that. But you do read this and there's a little bit different line. It's not just because he was blood doping. They're saying blood doping and therefore he defrauded the teams. Okay. I think it was Georg Preidler was another rider that had been involved in this. It was kind of an Austrian thing, and with this doctor, and I think a doctor is going to be sentenced here fairly shortly as well. But let's just go on here. Denifil, I think Denifil too won, I want to say the 2016 a stage in the Vuelta. I think that's the last year that Contador raced. I could be wrong on that, but check that out. I know one of the riders for Aqua Blue did win a stage that year. He's been jailed over his involvement in the Operation Adderless blood doping scandal. The Austrian former pro has also been banned between 2014 and 18 for his blood doping in that period. He was arrested and he admitted it to the police that he had done that. He had been with IMM Cycling and Aqua Blue, and now sentenced to 2 years in prison and 16 months suspended sentence. 33-year-old admitted to blood doping. The big fine for him was 349,000 euros. He was implicated. We know that. There was a raid. Fellow Austrian Georg Preidler. Yeah, we saw that as well. Preidler was, I think he was only had to do, I don't know how many, 12 months suspended sentence and 2,880 euros. So is he not making as much money? I don't know. But basically the court here said that let's see if we can find this. Preidler, Denifil was implicated. We got that. There was a section here. They accused him of defrauding the team by blood doping and regularly taking growth hormones from the 2017 Giro up until he left. Oh, that's a Preidler. Last year, Preidler, Dr. Demand. There was a section here. I thought it talked about the actual, the judge said that Denifil, here we go. But the judge said that Denifil would not have been hired by his former teams if they had been aware of his doping, and therefore would not have been paid. Okay, so who's getting the money? This is a criminal offense. Usually you have to show restitution to a victim. Those usually on, like, I don't know that they're showing that this is a victim, that this 350, basically we'll just call it 350 euros is being paid back to the team. The team's no longer. Was the team no longer because of his actions? No, there was other issues with Aqua Blue. Remember, they're trying to form with a different team at the time. There was all kinds of problems. Where's that money going? I think that's just the Austrian government that's just taking the funds in. Seems like a kind of a, and this is where I'm just like, it's really crappy. Once again, if Aqua Blue was defrauded and they felt they were damaged, I probably got the best out of it they could. I mean, he was winning stages. Like I think he's the guy, and was doing. If he was 350,000 euros, he's putting some value into that team. Team didn't go defunct because of him. There was other issues. And matter of fact, it might have even sustained itself a little longer and given other people jobs due to the fact that he was doing this. So there's a little bit of weirdness there. If the team needed to come and show that they were defrauded, they should have done that in civil court. I just really think this is a crappy way to do it on criminally. Now, how is he going to pay those funds back when he's in an Austrian jail? I don't know. Now, with all that said, I think there is not a bright side, but a good line in a sense where now riders, maybe they're like, oh, this is going to really hit me where it counts in the financial bucket. Not only you get terminated from your team, you're not paid, but you're actually could have back charges done or fees that you would owe, and now possibly criminal. I mean, that's maybe deter you from taking that one step further. Maybe, I don't know. People, do all kinds of things thinking they're not going to get caught. So, even you look at Lance, even though he had all these lawsuits and, Landis won this and the US government was after him on that. He still has mentioned, while he may not have the money and prestige he did before, he did take the money that he earned during that time and he invested it into this little company called Uber. And he said now he has a ton of Uber money. Yeah. So I don't know that he's really all that disappointed and I know he still thinks Floyd's a POS, but hey, I don't know if this is the way of going about it. That's kind of my point on that one. So, he's out. The judge, like I said, put Dennefield in jail for 2 years, 350,000 euros. Yikes. Okay, let's go to another one here. This is a situation. We've been seeing this with sprinters lately, complaining about other sprinters. Remember, it started a little bit ago with Caleb Ewing was complaining about he complained about Groenewegen and saying that he was the last race and or the Tour of Turkey, the crash, and that there was all kinds of problems there, and kind of just digging on him. I didn't even think Jakobsen had really gone after Groenewegen like Caleb Ewing had. Now we have Peter Sagan. He's talking about Wout van Aert. He says, Peter Sagan says, Wout van Aert should apologize over Tour de France sprinting incident. Former world champion has reflected in his dispute with Van Aert during stage 11 of last year's tour. So this was the situation. Van Aert gets second. Sagan's relegated to the back of the pack. There was some headbutting, I think, there of Sagan to Wout. Wout gives him the finger afterwards, and that's what Peter's all upset about. So after the finish, Sagan was relegated to last place in the peloton after initially finishing second on the stage, while Van Aert was also handed a fine for inappropriate behavior after raising his middle finger to Sagan, given the universal salute, I guess, of you're number one. Such situations happen in Japan sprints. Everyone knows how hectic things can get. After what he said to me in that sprint, I think he should apologize. I thought that 5 months ago, and I still do now. This is what Sagan's saying. Well, I won't lose any sleep over it. That's what's great to me on that one is, here's Peter Sagan saying, look, I didn't even think about this, but I've been thinking about it for the last 5 months. It doesn't bother me. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but I really bothered, and he should apologize because I don't really care, but I really care that he hasn't apologized for what he said to me. These are the things we miss about Peter Sagan and not winning last year, not being able to be on the four, and he's kind of bringing things back up. So this is kind of the situation where you're in traffic. Maybe you're just driving down the freeway, minding your own business. You're plenty of space with you in the car. You're not doing anything. Guy or girl pulls right in front of you, and you have to slam on the brakes. It's totally their fault. You give them the bird, and they freak out at you. How dare you, call them to account? This is the exact situation. Sagan was totally in the fault. Just let it go, right? It's your fault here. You got relegated. You lost the green jersey probably because of that, or at least a chance for it. And now you're still mad at Wout. I don't know. Wout's one of the straighter sprinters out there. We've seen that in this. We saw that at Milan-San Remo. We saw it at, was it Flanders? Yeah, he does pretty straight sprinting. So I wouldn't really Sagan, get over it. We have mailbag. I'm going to go through this mailbag here and kind of see what you guys had to complain about. There were some good comments on our Jason Saltzman interview, so appreciate those. Keep those coming. Keep the encouragement coming for Mr. Saltzman. Last week, we had some comments, so we'll start with Facebook. Jason Graffath says, pretty extreme take on Velo Promo. This to me, I imagine. The current consensus is that we have a significant spike in cases from people not following social distancing guidelines. VP is just repeating this consensus. As far as events, even if VP wanted to put an event, they wouldn't get permits. This isn't the shit sandwich that this is the shit sandwich we all get to keep chomping on. Yum. USAC is strongly advising against Q1 events. I am thinking of getting the very individual South Canal Time Trial Series started again in February, running on Sundays. Okay. I did respond back that basically I just had a very narrow take. Was that part of blaming everybody? I mean, are you doing group rides? Are you out there doing this? Am I seeing stuff on Strava? Or I'm not calling anybody out. I'm just saying because I'm saying they are calling all of us out, okay, that it's your fault. And so I just mentioned that, and I said, it's your fault, Jason. It's, I mean, yours, mine, everybody, even those that are doing the thing right. I've also spoken out against USA Cycling, not pushing for healthy living via bike racing right now. So far, USA Cycling hasn't pointed you or has not pointed to any of us as being the problem. Jason responds, he said, I'm seeing the consensus in the media I consume. Okay. So you can look other places and maybe there's contradictory information out there. Okay. YouTube, Mark Tucker said, I had similar thoughts about some of the wording on the Velo Promo update. This is coming from a Velo Promo GoFundMe contributor and prize money donator. So I'm not anti-VP. Hope they can find a way to put on some NorCal races. I raced 25 USAC sanctioned in 2020, but with a lot of more travel and expenses required. Planning on the same for 2021, but missed the NorCal stuff. I just want to reiterate though, I'm not anti-Velo Promo. I just thought the blanket accusation was misplaced. These are baffling to me coming from groups that should be promoting the sport. We're just talking about racing. We watched Tour de France. We watched the Vuelta. We watched all these other things. We see Georgia and Florida having races last year. And, you want me to pull up a chart that I have here of California compared to Florida, of when they've closed, when they've done closed indoor dining, when they've had curfews. And our numbers are much, much worse. I don't know if there's a correlation. I don't know what it is, but all I'm saying is there's some data needs to be gone through. And so Mark Tucker says, round trip airfare to Gainesville is only $200. Swamp Classic is February 6th and 7th. All right. It looks like we're going to be just watching Mark and Sean Bagley for local this year. I don't want to belabor this point. I think it's important for us to race. And I think it's important for us to promote a healthy lifestyle. And what have you done during COVID season, which has now been basically a year, to make sure that you and your loved ones are in the best position possible if you get this? I got it. My family got it, and we did as much as we could to make sure, because it's going to happen. You're going to probably get it. Someone you know is going to get it, whether you're following the guidelines or not. Once we got it, by the way, we did definitely stay away from everybody, quarantined ourselves in. That's just what you're doing. But we've done as much as we can to be as healthy as possible. If you're getting that COVID-15 weight on you, then maybe you are not doing what you should be for helping yourself, and you're expecting everyone else to do it for you. So anyway, episode 219, we are done with that. Go out and ride your bike, get some vitamin D, stay healthy, drink and eat healthy, take care of your family and your friends, and we will see you on the other side. But I really hope that we're going to start seeing people out doing some bike racing. It would be nice. I think we can do it. I think we could do it in the right way. And I'm all for doing those crappy little crits in a abandoned parking lot somewhere, so we can maybe get them. Anyway, all the best. It's January 18th. So how soon is it going to be until you are fit and ready to go? Take care, everyone.
urine.